Hello, my name is Riley Chilvers, and this is my friend Robert. We'll be interviewing Allan Straight. Today is October 25th, and let's go in and hear Allan Straight's stories.
I came to ask you, do you know what?
Mr. Allan Straight, we would like to thank you for taking the opportunity to share your life with us. I understand that you were born in 1937 and that you have lived your whole life in Cambridge Narrows. So living with no electricity or water, what was it like growing up and not having the things we have today?
Well, it was a way of life that we had, and of course, what you don't have or what you don't know, it doesn't really affect you because you don't know anything about it. So I went to a one-room schoolhouse and walked over a mile to school, and we just had one teacher and that taught all the kids in the school, and at home we come home at night and had supper and always had a few chores to do around home to help or do something, and we did our lessons or schoolwork after supper in the evening. We had lamps, oil lamps, and a Aladdin lamp for light, and so it was different.
What was your first job?
Well, I always helped my father around the farm, but the first I worked out, I guess, was in one summer. My neighbor down the road needed somebody to help him hay, so I went down and helped him hay, and I would go down in the morning, and I'd stay for my meals there, dinner and supper, and then we'd work at the haying and stuff or whatever we had to do, and it was my first summer job, I guess.
Did you have to do a lot of work when you were a kid?
Well, I guess I was always the kind of a person who wanted to be outside anyway, so I helped my father or whoever with whatever they were doing. I guess it was just part of my life. I didn't think about it so much as work. It was just part of our growing up.
What did you do for fun activities?
Oh well, there wasn't any other young boys around my age, so I guess I entertained myself to some degree. But we used to swim in the summertime in the lake, and then in wintertime we'd ski some and learn to skate, and we'd skate on the lake if we got a little older. They used to have bonfires at night on the lake, and everybody would gather around and skate around the bonfire. And that's probably not something that's too much done nowadays, but it seemed like fun then anyway. It was quite cold.
How did you heat your home?
Wood. We had wood stoves in the house, and had a kitchen wood stove, and then there was in the other room we had a heater, a stove, and had a big pile of firewood every year to heat the house. We didn't have electric heat or oil heat. It was all wood heat.
How many people were in your family?
Well, I had 3 sisters and 5 brothers. So there was 9 of us all together, but of course as the older ones got older, they went away to work and things.
What was your house like?
It was just a farmhouse, an old farmhouse. It was quite a big house, and it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything very fancy as some houses are nowadays, but it was. We were warm and comfortable, and
Where did your parents work when you were a kid?
well, my father was a farmer, and they didn't go out to work. They worked at home, and mother, of course, with all us children, had a big job looking after us all and getting all the meals and doing all the cooking and the washing and all that stuff. And my father worked outside in the fields, and in the wintertime we worked in the woods, cutting wood, firewood. And
How did you travel as a kid?
mostly on foot, by walking. And then at one point I got a little older. My father got me a second-hand bicycle. So learned to ride that and used to drive it back and forth to school. And then when I was real small, I used to have a wagon and a horse and wagon, I can remember going to the store with my mother, and she would drive the horse, and we'd go to the store, and the little horse and wagon or buggy would be something like you'd see on the road to Avonlea if you ever watched that.
Did you ever have TV as a kid?
No, I don't know. I don't know what. I was probably 12 or 14 years old before. I don't know. There was an old gentleman up the road he was about the first one to have a TV, and all the youngsters around the community would go there and watch the shows. But I was a little older. I didn't go so much. It was in the early 50s, I guess.
What kind of crops did you grow?
Well, we grew strawberries, a lot of strawberries at that time, and early potatoes, and all our garden stuff. And then we had cattle, and we had hay, grew hay crops to get that in. We'd have to hay every summer and get the hay in for winter.
Did you have a horse?
My father had horses, 2 horses, a team. Their names were Dan and Champ.
What was the fashion like?
Well, I don't know what to say. I mean, I wasn't very fascist conscious, I guess.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school at the McDonald's Corner School, which is down the road from my place. It's a little over a mile. The building's still there, but it's been converted into a house. It's where Debbie Cantor lives now. And,
How did you get to school?
We walked to school, and when I got a little older, I used to go earlier than everybody else and build a fire on the stove in the school so it would be warm. And I get paid for doing that. I think I got $12 a year or something like that.
How many years did you go to school?
Well, not enough. I went down at that little school down there. I went to grade 8, I think it was. And then at that time, in 1950, or right there, along there, the people in the community decided they wanted to have a consolidated school, which meant that they sort of got away from the little one-room schoolhouses around the country, and they decided to build this school, which is now the municipal building down here. And the first year of that consolidated school, the school wasn't built. so they took us to school over at White's Cove in a well, it was a community hall, and it was in one room, but it was from grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. There wasn't any grade 12 there that time, and so Ann McLaughlin was our teacher, and there was Gerald Smith picked us up on our road, and some of the other kids down in Lower Cambridge, and brought us up to the little building, the apartment buildings across from the municipal building, which was a little small school at that time. And then we get into with another guy. He had a van, and he hauled us from there over to White's Cove, and at night we come back, and that when. And in that year was the king. What was his name? The king died anyway. That was when Queen Elizabeth took over as Queen of England. That was the year that the king died. That was in 51, I think. And the next year the school was completed, which is not this school, but the one down there, the municipal building, and that it is now. It was, and the classes started there, and it went from grade 7 to 12. So that was a new venture for a lot of us.
Did you enjoy school?
Well, I wouldn't say I was a good student, no. But some parts of it, some things I liked. I liked math and physics and algebra and that stuff, but I didn't like literature or history. I had to study that, and I didn't like it too good, I guess.
Did you pick berries when you were a kid?
Yes, I did, yeah. We had quite a few berries, and we picked every day, and from morning till night, and it was quite all our family worked at it, and then there was some other, we had other pickers hired to come and help pick, so we picked a lot of strawberries.
Can you tell me a little about your family life?
Well, as I say, we all lived at home there, but when I got older, we started to go to school at the new high school here, and of course, there was a lot more children, a lot more people there than there was in our old one-room school, and so my wife started school there the same time I did, and so that's how we met, I guess, and we kind of went from there, and we went together, and we were married in 1959, and at that time I was working in Fredericton, and so and my Jackie, my wife, she worked in Fredericton as well. She worked for the Harvey Studios on Queen Street, and I worked for the Capital Co-op, and we got married, and we lived up there for a year, and then we moved back down this area. And our daughter was born in 1960, and that we lived in some different places around, and then we finally got our place where we have now, and we've lived there ever since. And when I worked around different jobs for different people, and I drove trucks for other people, and then eventually I got my truck of my own and kept going from there, and so now I still have a truck, but at one time I had dump trucks, and then I had tractor trailers, and had two tractor trailers going at one time, and kept busy. And my wife, she graduated from high school in 1956, I think, wasn't it, Jackie? And anyway, we lived together, and then in 1978, she went to train as a nurse. And she was, an older student then, but she went for 2 years training for a nurse in St. John, and then after that she got her RN, and then she worked in Oromocto in the hospital in Oromocto. So she worked there for 20 years before she retired. So we was busy.
When you were growing up, did you go to the movies or corner store?
Yes, we went to the movies on Friday nights. I can remember when I was quite small that I think my mother took me first to the movies. It was one of the things that there wasn't a whole lot going on in the community, but it was one of the things that was kind of fun to do. And so, of course, when we got a little older, myself and my sisters, we went by ourselves, and we watched the movies over there in the Orange Hall across the lake from here, and then I guess it was probably after that they started showing movies here in this building right here, which was a hall at that time, and I don't know, it was probably on a Friday night as well, but anyway, we'd come up here to watch the movie. And of course, you got to remember that we didn't have a television or anything at home, and so, and no one else did either, really. But then they would show they'd have a serial, they called it, and it continued from one week into the next, and so you'd have to come every week to get the next part of the thing. And so when we used to come, the weather didn't bother us any. We'd come in the wintertime when it was snowing or whatever the weather was. We came anyway, and we walked up from home. It was over 3 miles from our place up here, which seems like a long ways to walk nowadays, but we were used to walking. Yeah, and the store, we used to, at that time it was quite common for people to go to the store on Saturday night. That seemed to be the time that the work week was over, and people would go to the store on Saturday night, and you'd pick up your things that you needed for the next week or whatever, and that was about the only entertainment there was. And the people would gather in the store and tell stories and all that sort of thing. And then when my father got a tractor in 1950, we didn't have a car, but we had the tractor, so we used to sometimes drive up to the store with the tractor to pick up our supplies, bigger things. We also bought feed at the store. They sold feed for cattle and chickens and pigs and stuff, so we would come up with the tractor and get that, and so that's what we did. Our closest neighbor, the people lived what we call down over the hill. We lived up on quite a high hill, and their place was down at closer to the road. And the people that lived there when I was young, the fellow's name was Straight. He was some connection with our family. I think he and my grandfather were cousins, and he and his wife lived there. And then when they got older, their nephew was William Thorne, and he came to live with them and to take care of them. And he married a lady, and her name was Laura Parks, which would be a relative of mine because my grandmother was a Parks, and so we was quite close connection with that family. And their farm was next to ours, and sometimes they shared work back and forth and that sort of thing. And then on down the road, when I was young, there was another place there, and it belonged to Lloyd Castard, who was a friend of my father, and he'd be away sometimes, but he had some cattle there, and my father used to go down there and to feed the cattle and look after him for him while he was away. So one day he was going down, and I used to like to go down with him, but he left, and I didn't leave. I didn't see him going, and so I discovered he was going down the road. So I run down across the field, and I jumped out on the road, and just as the mail car was coming there, but they seen me, so they stopped. So otherwise they'd have probably hit me. But anyway, I guess I probably got a scolding for that. That's one of the things that I remember. And then the other way, there was up the road, there was a house up the road a bit from us, and on the other side of the road, and that was the camp place, we called it. And but the camps, they lived there, but I don't remember them living there. But they rented the house out to the other people, and then on up the road a bit farther was McConaughey's, which you may know George McConaughey. He was here the other day, and so he had two brothers, and they were all in the army when I was a young guy. So.
Where did you get your food in the winter months?
Well, we of course we went to the store, the same as people do now. People now go to town and buy their groceries in a big supermarket, but we bought our groceries, all our things that we had to have in the local stores, and in the fall of the year we would raise pigs in the summertime, and they kill the pigs in the fall, and some of the neighbors would come to help. They probably killed a couple of pigs at one time, and I remember when I'd always be around when they were doing that, and everything would go good until they cut the pig's throat and the blood started running out, and I couldn't stand the sight of blood, and I'd pretty much almost faint, and I'd have to go to the house until that part would get over with, and then I'd come out again. So, and then my father wasn't a hunter, but Lige, that lived next door, he usually always got a deer, so he'd bring us a big piece of deer meat, and then sometimes they would kill a beef and have that for winter food. But of course we relied on the stores as well, And then my mother would do up a lot of canning and preserves and canned vegetables and jams and jellies and all that sort of thing for winter time. And we had chickens, and they would, at Thanksgiving or Christmas, they'd always kill a couple of chickens so everybody'd have a big meal with all the home canned vegetables and all that sort of thing. So we had some good times.
Who were your neighbors growing up? What were your Christmas like growing up in the early 40s and 50s?
Well, I guess our Christmases were were similar today. We were children, and we were told about Santa Claus and so on, and we get up in the morning early and to see what was under the tree for us. And we didn't have a lot of gifts, but everybody got something, and we hung up our stockings at night, and there was always a big orange right in the bottom of the stock. Hard to get it out sometimes, but anyway, and we had Christmas candies and stuff. But prior to that, we always went out to the woods. My father and he'd take his axe, and we'd go out and look around the woods to find a real good tree, and we'd cut the tree and bring it in and put it up and trim it and so on. Not nowadays people have their Christmas ornaments and trees and stuff up, anytime after the 1st December, but ours didn't usually go up until just a day or two before Christmas. And then we'd have a big Christmas dinner with, the family was always there, and then that was pretty much it. And the neighbors in the community, they'd go around and visit Christmas trees. They said they'd go out treeing. They'd go around to see other people's Christmas trees and stuff and kind of have a talk. And the women folk did that more, I guess, than the men did. But it was just, and the tree usually stayed up until New Year's, but it was always down by New Year's. So that's kind of the way it was. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your parents and the grandparents?
My parents, my father's name was Albert Straight, and my mother's name was Beatrice. She was Beatrice Lovely, and she was from Fort Fairfield, and that's where my father met her there, up there. He used to go up there to work in the fall, picking potatoes. So at that time, they didn't have the big harvesters and things that they have nowadays. It was they picked the potatoes up by hand and put them in barrels, and then they'd pick them up with wagons and haul them into the potato storage area. And so he worked in Fort Fairfield, and I guess that's where he met my mother. And then they come down here and they got married down. They were married down here and made their home here. And the first year my mother was here, and I don't know about in the early 30s anyway. There was a real mild winter. There was hardly any snow, and there wasn't any cold temperatures. And she thought it was just going to be a lot better than Fort Fairfield where she came from. But the next winter kind of proved her that wrong, because it was a real severe winter with a lot of deep snow. So it's just threw that in there to say that everything's not always the same. And they talk about global warming nowadays, but we had some quite fluctuation in weather back that far as well. But my grandparents lived in the house with us, and my grandmother and grandfather, they lived in one end of the house, and we lived in the other end. But my grandmother was sick. She was she was sick quite a bit, and I'd like to introduce my wife Jackie. She's going to tell you about her community involvement. So she was involved with a lot of different things.
Hi. I when our daughter Ann was young, I was involved with Home and School, and I was the secretary and for a number of years. I also was involved with 4-H, and that was I was an assistant leader for a number of years with that. I was involved with the ACW, which is the Anglican Church Women in the church.
JA.
And I led a JA group, which is Junior Auxiliary, and GA group, which was the older group of girls over different years. Later years I was involved with community days and Institute, Women's Institute. I was involved with the Gagetown Area Health Services Association, and just numerous things that have come and gone over the years in the community. But I was always very civic-minded and enjoyed working with people and doing things for people. And I'm a bird watcher. We have a neighborhood of women that go out bird watching, and so I was one of these people that did a lot of canning and cooking and housework and flower gardening, and so it was always a busy time. And then when I was nursing, it was a very busy time. But I went nursing at the time our daughter went to Dalhousie University, and so Allan stayed home and kept the fires while we were working, and he was working too. But it's just been a great community to live in.
Cambridge Narrows Community School would like to thank you for sharing your life experience, and we hope that it enjoyed it as much as we do. Thank you, Allan Street and Jackie Street.
You're very welcome. We enjoyed doing it.
Hi, this is Robert and this is Riley. That concludes our story with Allan Strait from Cambridge Regional Libraries. Thank you for your time.